Sure thing.
Okay, welcome to the Get, Sign, and Succeed podcast. This is episode 4, and my name is Bruce Badgley. Welcome. We've got a very special show for you this evening with some guests, and we're going to get right into it here. And like I said, my name is Bruce Badgley. I'm going to introduce our very special guest tonight. It's Frank Barone, president of Go MVP. How are you tonight, Frank?
I'm doing wonderfully. How are you, Bruce?
Well, I tell you what, we thank you for your time tonight. This is a very important topic tonight, which is the do's and don'ts of social media, and with obviously everything that the Go MVP is involved in as far as social media. We felt that you would probably be the expert on this. And joining us as usual, my buddy Craig Cox. Craig, how are you? OneOfOneLifeSkills.com. How you doing tonight?
I'm blessed, excited about learning about a lot of the social media stuff myself. So I'm just excited about getting going.
Good. And unfortunately, our other co-host, Andrew Cohen, got detained and fortunately won't be with us this week, but he'll be back next week. But I'm going to obviously start with some questions here, Frank. We're going to have a brief presentation on, what you do there at Go MVP in a formal presentation. But, you and I talked a little bit on the phone earlier this afternoon, and, you touched on what social media is in the recruiting process. In your own words, what is the social media presence in the recruiting process like?
Yeah, great question. And the real reason why Go MVP was born is basically just an acknowledgement that the recruiting process today, Bruce, is very different from what it was 10 and 20 years ago. Quite honestly, it's very different than what it was even 4 and 5 years ago. As a result of COVID, college coaches have become extremely sophisticated at using social media to go through the recruiting process out of necessity, right? We all remember a few years back when there was no way for a college coach to meet a player, a candidate, a recruit in person, right? They couldn't go to games or camps. There were no games or camps. The recruit was not permitted to go to the university, and the coach was not permitted to go to the high school. So the only way that they had by which they can really find out about particular players was through social media. Social media tends to provide the most up-to-date, dynamic information about a player and gives the college coach an opportunity to really kind of see who that person is, right? Not just who they are as an athlete and the mechanics of how they play the position for their particular sport, but who are the circle of friends that they keep, right? How do they interact with their teammates? How do they interact with their coaches? What are they posting? What are they liking? What are they sharing, right? All those little insights that athletes may not realize college coaches are paying attention to, they are. And they're able to gain a ton of insight as to who that athlete is right through their fingertips, right? While they're looking at a computer screen or on their phone. They're actually, and if I could take a step back, the NCAA recently said that 91% of college coaches are actually communicating with, evaluating, and discovering the athletes that they are, giving offers to and giving scholarships to directly through social media.
What was that percentage again? 91%?
91%, according to the NCAA, 91% of college coaches are communicating with athletes through social media, but they're even evaluating and discovering the athletes they're giving offers to through social media. What that means is they're not waiting to hear from the high school coach. They're not waiting to hear from the trainer, the AAU coach, the club coach. They're doing their homework themselves. Most colleges today have departments of staff members or interns that their entire job is to scour social media and identify those diamonds in the rough. And when they do have a target that they're paying attention to, when an athlete does get onto their radar screen or to their boards, if you will, they will use social media to find out everything there is to know about that athlete prior to spending the money on traveling to go to a game or go to a camp or to see that athlete in person. It allows them some degree of efficiencies and really gets them insights before they actually meet the athlete. So it's a tool that they have become extremely sophisticated at using. And if we know that, and we do, let's make sure that the athlete understands how to use this tool to their benefit. In other words, don't just look at social media as a mechanism to pound your chest or brag about something that you did or a touchdown that you scored or a sack that you made, but use it as a vehicle to display who you are as a student athlete, right? Your commitment to academics and how you go about your business, how you go about your life. What are your aspirations? What are your objectives? Make sure that you're now using this tool properly because you know that they're watching, right? So if we know they're watching, if we know that's where the eyeballs are, then let's make sure that the athlete is presenting himself or herself in the right manner. It's a simple concept. If you're going to go fishing, go to where you know the fish are, right? So in this case, we know where the fish are. We know where the eyeballs are. Let's make sure we're providing the college recruiter, the college scout, with the information they need.
Craig, you got a question for Frank?
I'm enjoying all this information. I'm just agreeing. It was a really quick learning curve that coaches had to do because, for years they were telling us stay off of social media because you get yourself in trouble. Stay away from social media, and like 6 months later they say you better get on social media. That's how everybody's recruiting. And so, us coaches, we really had to get into it and learn it and learn the process of it. So I'm learning a lot tonight as we go as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Well, just to add on to that point, when I have 4 boys, by the way, between the ages of 16 and 20 years old. My oldest boy plays for Penn, and he enjoyed a very successful recruiting process, and he went through it during COVID. And believe it or not, we used the strategies for him, 3 years ago that I'm using today with the athletes and the thousands of athletes that we service across the country. And the idea was to basically be his personal public relations firm and build a marketing campaign so that when college coaches were hunting, we gave them information to hunt for. And he was successful in a way that he achieved close to 20 offers. And in each one of those offers, in each one of the conversations that he had with a college coach, I was on that call with him. And 100% of the time, they cited content that we put out about him that contributed to their decision to make him an offer, right?
Well,
so if you're providing the proper information and you know what these coaches are looking for, you're helping them make that decision. I'm sorry.
Since it kind of segued in there, why don't we just go ahead and kind of show your information here.
Sure.
And put this up there. Can you see that, guys?
Not yet.
Not yet. Hang on a second. And now you should be able to see it, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so this is your first slide here. I don't know if you had the opportunity to really review it, but talk a little bit about, this is obviously some of the content that you're putting together, for these players. What are some of obviously the delivery methods that you're using to get this information in front of the coaches?
Well, first and foremost, we have probably about 20 points of presence on social media across 6 different platforms. Twitter being the most important one. That is the tool of choice as it appears for most college coaches, as it's a little bit better of a communication tool than maybe some of the other social media outlets. But we're very active in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest, actually. So what you're looking at here, the slide that you just had, was one of our pages on Twitter. And you'll note somewhere on the 2/3 of the page down that particular page has a little over 48,000 followers. In totality, between all of our pages, we're at about 125,000 followers. So when we post for an athlete, we are getting them in front of a massive amount of eyeballs. And our followers are purely either athletes or coaches. We never bought a single follower. We don't dabble in other business models or other industries, I should say other verticals. So it's either athletes or coaches.
Wow.
Yep.
And here's some of the examples of some of the items that you're sending out regarding the players, right?
Yeah. So what you see in front of you, there are 3 athletes there. Though this is obviously a still shot, but those are videos. So in each case, with every athlete that we service, we are putting together, we have professional editors that edit their film, edit their photos, and write professional news articles, news releases about the players. In fact, on our staff, we have writers that write for ESPN.com and NJ.com, and they will do homework on the athlete. They'll interview the athlete, the coaches, the parents, other players, to find out everything there is to really know about the athlete. And we'll mix and combine static image and photos with the dynamic image and the videos, and then layer on top of that the written word and the news releases. And the effect of the 3 together makes quite the impression on the viewer. So what you're seeing here in front of you are just 3 examples of some videos that we'll put out. And you'll see, by the way, just to point out on that last slide, you'll see game film to the left, you'll see training film up in the middle, you'll see weightlifting film on the right. So anything that really depicts the athleticism and the mechanics of the athlete, we're going to want to display to the coaches.
I had a quick question here too. And this relates more to, I heard as well that in the case of some athletes that you would display, if they were, let's just say a lineman, but could dunk a basketball, that you might even incorporate the fact that he could dunk a basketball, maybe, in there, or maybe some film, some composite film. What are your thoughts about that?
Bruce, you just brought up such an important point. I'm glad you did. And Coach Craig, you might be able to attest to this. Coaches like to see multi-sport athletes, right? If you're even if you're a football coach and you got 30 scholarships to give out, as you're starting to understand who the athlete is, multi-sport athletes typically have developed muscle groups that the single sport athletes have not yet developed. So they have a certain degree of diversification that should equate to less of a chance of injury. And many times another sport might demonstrate a specific aspect of athleticism that maybe the college coach was questioning in his or her mind because they didn't get it from the game film. So for example, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a football player, get an offer off of a basketball clip that they put out, because that basketball clip demonstrated a certain degree of athleticism and quickness and agility that maybe the coach was not able to get from the regular film. It's happened just over and over and over again. So we love when our athletes provide us with content on them playing a secondary or a tertiary sport, and we will promote it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And then, wow, look at the graphics on this. I mean, it just jumps off the page.
Yeah, these are what we refer to as player spotlights. So whenever we take on a new client, the first post that they get is this player spotlight, where we'll really try and do exactly that. We want the edit to scream out to college coaches to say, hey, stop what you're doing for a second and take a look at this kid. And by the way, we don't discriminate, right? We get about 250 solicitations a day. I only take on about 3 to 5% of them. And the criteria by which we take on a client has nothing to do with the level of an athlete they are. It has to do to their commitment to play at the next level. So we're going to provide the same service to that player that really has aspirations of playing D3 ball as we will to the player that's looking to, get into the SEC or the Big Ten. So what you're seeing here is us making sure that regardless of the level of the athlete, we want to make coaches stop in their tracks and see, does this athlete fit the profile of what we're looking for in a player? And by us doing this every single month, we're putting out these professional edits. The pressure that we're putting on the eyeballs is what eventually gets their attention, if that makes sense.
With all of this stuff that's going in front of them, you have to catch their attention somehow.
That's
and
exactly
and so
right.
you're doing it by providing a professionally manicured item via Twitter or other social media. Really, really good stuff there. Very impressive. And then here's some more items where you're obviously showing a kicker, but also highlighting statistics from a combine.
So interesting, right? In these 3 edits, and by the way, my assistant that sent this to you, she did a good job. I didn't realize she gave you all this. So look at the gentleman on the left, right? So you have an athlete here that is 5'7", 135 pounds, maybe doesn't pass the eyeball test, but look at the SAT score. When I tell you the amount of communication that this young man got from college coaches within hours of us posting this was absurd. The parents called us up and couldn't thank us enough, because there's a certain element of academic institution out there that score means a little bit more than other things. So they're going to now pay a little bit closer attention and try and understand more about this young man, because they clearly see he has a commitment to the academic side that maybe means more to them as a program than somebody else. So we're going to look for certain things that are going to stand out, right? You see the gentleman in the middle, his 4.40, right? His broad jump, the 3.5-star kicker on the right. So there are things that we're going to want to make sure we are bringing out and magnifying to the viewer to make sure that they stop in their tracks and look at it.
And Craig, with one-of-one life skills, your program is really all geared, or a lot of it geared about helping these kids attain, certain academic and, the items necessary to, to obviously stay in school, right?
I mean, absolutely. The whole program is about teaching the success skills that successful people have. You want to be successful, you got to do what successful people have. So that's basically what I teach in my program. And the academics is like I said, is a byproduct of it, because if you do what successful people do, you're going to have the good grades, you're going to have the good test score. But I really, on this, as we're talking about Coach's site here, I visited your site several times. As just looking at it from a college football coach's perspective, it's really well laid out. I mean, it's so easy to find players' information. It's so easy to find videos. It's so easy to find, just pictures and all that stuff. I was really impressed with how you guys have your website laid out, and I can see it being, something a lot of college coaches would use to help go out and look for recruits.
That's much appreciated, Coach. We did put a lot of thought into the layout of how each profile was developed. And by the way, every athlete does not just get a profile on our website. Every one of our clients has their own webpage with their name embedded into the URL. And we do that for specific marketing purposes. I'm sure you've heard of the term search engine optimization.
Sure.
But as college coaches start to search for the athletes that we're promoting, because they see in their social feeds, they see the athlete, then that web page will start to rise on the search engines as a result of search engine optimization organically. So we try and really create a unique presentation for each one of our athletes.
And quite honestly, that in my sports solutions marketing, that's search engine optimization is part of it as well, because of getting presence and consistent presence. You get that a lot in sports, and with that, that's where you're going to rise up the Google charts. Okay, that's where you're going to get prioritization. The same way in business with your Google searches, the same way you're doing it with these kids with their individual web pages. I find that very interesting concept, but totally get it.
Yeah, and thank you for that. It's great to talk to folks that understand these sort of concepts. You see, when we started the business, we looked at the competitive landscape, and I wouldn't even say that we compete with anyone, because I think we do it so unique. But the reality is there are other services out there that want to convince you that college coaches are sitting there staring at their website all day long. And
don't get me started.
They're a coach.
I want to mention some of these recruiting services all the time, but I'm not allowed to mention names. So
yeah, we'll keep the
places
names,
like what you're talking about.
But you guys, I think you guys know, some of the players I would be referring to. And the truth of the matter is college coaches are not. And we know this because we've had the privilege and the honor of speaking to hundreds of them over the last few years, and they're not, so we don't try and make this business about us and GoMVB and our website. We make it about the player. And that's why every player gets their own unique URL. And the focus of our business is to get them on social media. What you're seeing here are some examples of some press releases that have just gotten our athletes, unbelievable impressions and views, and then correspondence, right? So, these kids, a lot of times the players will get some sort of mass email, and, unfortunately at a young age, when you first get a mass email, you think, oh my God, I'm being recruited. But those mass emails, if you present the athlete in the right way on a consistent basis, will start to turn into individual correspondence. Individual correspondence will turn into direct messaging will turn into text messaging will turn into phone calls when the period permits. So it's items like this that you see in front of you, where we're combining, as I said earlier, the photo edits with the video edits, and then straight out news releases, substantive news releases that really, when you combine all the above, it does create quite the impression on the viewer.
Yeah, no, quite impression on me, I can tell you that. Forget about the viewer there. And obviously, looks like you've got obviously these kids played up via their own trading card, and just kind of focusing on obviously all of the methods that you're delivering, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stop the share at the moment, because I just have like a ton of questions as well for you related to that. But it's amazing what you're doing for the student. Now, obviously, the single biggest takeaway that I have on this conversation that we had is the 91% rate that is going to lead to impressions of these kids, that they're going to get it from the coach. But a couple other things. First off, some higher profile athletes that I know, and even lower profile athletes, have their parents running their social media. Yep. Talk to me about maybe pros and cons of that, Frank.
Well, on the surface, it sounds like a good idea, but the truth of the matter is that the parent probably does not have the time or the expertise to do it right. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with a parent that has said to me, oh, I handle that for my son or my daughter. And I'll say, that's great. I'm thrilled to hear it. I'm thrilled to hear it. I have one question for you, sir. Why does your son have 44 followers, and of the 44 followers, only 3 of them are college coaches? You know, what you have to understand with social media is the way social media works is rather simple. If you post something, that post is being seen by those people that follow you, no one else,
Right.
unless some of those people share it, right, to their distribution channels. It's being seen by those people and those people only. So 9 out of 10 times, 9.9 out of 10 times, when a parent tells me that they're handling it, I see that maybe they're doing a little bit better job than what the average 15 to 18-year-old would be doing. But at the same time, they don't necessarily have the expertise to do it right. And when we point out to the parent, okay, we really appreciate you doing some nice stuff here, but again, you got 40 followers, another 40 followers, 3 of them are college coaches. I've taken the time to look, sir, and I see that you're really not getting them out there. So let me give you a couple of hints. They're for free. But if you really want to do this right, take a look at what we're doing for athletes across the country. And when they take a look, typically they'll take a step back and say, okay, what do I have to do?
What is the biggest mistake that
There you go.
you were going to ask that question, Craig?
I was going to ask, what do you think the most common mistakes are that student athletes do on their social media?
Well, first off, I would say student athletes have to understand that, you know, there is an impression. You are making an impression. So if your highlight tape or anything that you have is loaded with aggressive language or anything that might be alarming to a college coach, remember the college coaches are making a decision whether you fit the profile of their program. Are you going to embarrass their program? Are you going to create issues for them down the road? So why give them any reason to question that? So when I see that, you know, athletes have, you know, music or something in the background that is a little bit less favorable, then we're going to certainly recommend that they change it. Their game film, if their highlight film is, you know, I have to scroll down 6 or 7 or 8 posts to get to the highlight film, chances are the college coach's attention is not going to remain in place. They want to make sure that that highlight film is pinned to the top, or if they have very impressive training film or whatever it is that really is going to impress the college coach, you want to have that pinned to the top. When you display your highlight film, and this is something, Coach, I'm sure you see all the time. I know Coach Andrew does. You know, that film has got to show your best plays within the first 30 seconds. Right. Sometimes what you'll see athletes do is they segregate the offensive plays and the defensive plays if they play both sides of the ball or possibly special teams. You got to make sure your best stuff is in the first 20 to 30 seconds, or you're not going to get them to see and watch it any further. Guys, I don't want to ramble. I can go all day long.
I know you can.
You're good.
And see, that's the best part. Is that the best part of this whole thing is that we've talked for a half an hour and we've barely touched the scratched the surface,
right. No doubt,
of social media and what it means in the recruiting process. It's not the be all to get all, but 91% of the people that are getting scholarships or moving on to play at the next level, that's how they're getting there, right, Frank?
You're spot on. Look, we don't have any interest or intention to replace the value of the high school coach or the recruiter that maybe is working with a particular player. What we want to do is support them. We understand very clearly where the eyeballs are. So let's provide the high school coach or the recruiter enough substance to support their efforts when they're dealing with college coaches, right? And when you combine a really good recruiter, I happen to think that Coach Andrew is an amazing recruiter with a really good high school coach. I think most high school coaches do not get the notion of recruiting, but there are some out there that really do. And when you provide the content in a professional manner, it gives them so much more leverage and tools to work with, if you will, with the college coaches. That's the idea that we're trying to put out.
Yeah, and then you couple in obviously what Coach Cox is providing, the life skills, the decision-making process on picking the right school, but also, making sure that once they get there, Craig has, braced them for impact on the fact of what this actually is going to mean. And goes well beyond even from that too. And, how to succeed, how to put that whole package together. For me personally, in covering high school sports as long as I have, it's great to have opportunity to obviously talk to gentlemen like you, Frank, Craig, and Andrew, in how all these pieces just fit together. And quite honestly, when you sit back and look at it, without any one of them, the chances of success are obviously not as great than if you put together all these points if you want to play at the next level. And this is not just for football, this is for any sport, right, Frank?
No question. We support all sports, and I want to be careful and say both genders today. But clearly it's what we do applies to all sports. I think your point, though, is such a good one. It does is the expression that we've all heard, it takes a village, right? And if you have trusted resources such as Coach Cox, Coach Cohen, you really can maximize your chance of success. And what we do is provide, the platform and the backdrop to really make their job easier.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'll tell you what, it's been obviously the dues that came out of this thing is you really need help in creating a social media presence, not only in the content, but in the way that you saturate, the social media there, because it's there's a very simple formula: consistency over time equals results. And so being consistent in the way that you're going through your social media will definitely lead to some results. And then supplementing that obviously in with, Coach Cohen and his relationships, and Coach Cox with the type of skill development. It's just a great package. And but all ones that I think everybody, the information is out there. Definitely, Frank, we'll give you a link to the program here too. You can obviously post this on, your sites or share it however you want. And, we appreciate that. But this has been.
Mind me adding one more point?
Sure.
So, while Coach Cox is working with an athlete, I'm giving you a hypothetical, and, he's talking to him about his development as a student athlete and his commitment to academics and his commitment to maybe training and getting a little bit faster or stronger, diet, sleep habits. We're providing that content out, right? And we're ensuring that the viewing is tremendous, right? We're ensuring that the exposure is outstanding. There is an interesting dynamic that takes place when the athlete knows that the world is looking, and maybe it's not the athlete, this is human behavior. When people know that others are watching at an enormous level, what winds up happening? We see it over and over again. They put a little bit more work into their studying. They train a little bit harder. They put a little bit more effort on game day, because they know that we're going to take the content from those efforts and we're going to show the whole world. So, when you know that the world's watching, you just put a little bit more into it. And it's really a very positive overall result.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, it's clear that we're going to have to get you back on the show here,
No doubt.
in a little bit here, because this has been, the thing about it is that, yeah, we did the broad 40,000 foot level of social media, but really you could dive down into any number of social media topics. I mean, you could do a whole thing just on highlights. You could just do, on, SATs. You can do a whole thing just on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a million different ways that we can go with this. I'll tell you what, it's any final questions there, Craig?
Just to kind of piggyback on we talk about the what not to do, is just make sure you don't post anything that's going to hurt your recruiting process. I mean, be smart about it. And it's not just about what you post, it's also about what you like. or
Yeah, that
what
was
you
a great
retweet. And
point, Frank.
a lot of people don't understand it because I'll get a message about what someone else likes. I guess if Twitter, whoever thinks that if you like it, then I like it too. But like I had a video that talks about this. If I get a message at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's inappropriate because you liked something you probably shouldn't have liked, and then I'm not going to follow you anymore. So don't do anything that's going to hurt you in the recruiting process. And not all coaches are going to think that's okay or think that's cool. You might have some that will, but you want to just leave everything open for yourself. Don't do anything that's going to hinder your recruiting process.
There's plenty of other athletes that aren't doing that the coaches can pay attention to.
Right.
So, and I'll give you one better on that great point, Coach. If most college coaches are using Twitter as their first point of contact, but if that athlete gets on their radar screen and they're on their watch list, you bet they're going to go and take a look at what they're doing on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snapchat, and those other platforms. They tend to let their hair down a little bit more, right? They're a little bit more social based, and that's when they're going to show some true colors. And I shouldn't say true colors, but they may show another side to them that they need to be careful about. The athlete has to understand that all of their points of presence on social media are now on for display. And if their objective is to go play a sport that they're playing in high school at the college level, everything they do on social media matters.
Yeah, it does. Well, whether I think it's even more so with athletes. Look, I did a did a thing on my company. Like we have a safety meeting every week at like work or every other week. My topic was safe social media, because it was a safety meeting, but people need to be safe on social media, and safe meaning just what you talked about. You just have to be. It isn't just what you do. It's what even all the people do that you follow. And I mean, you can be linked on something you have no idea. And unfortunately, that could be career ending. It certainly could be stop an athlete from getting an offer to go to the next level. So just be safe on social media is a great message. I think that you can send each and every day is that before you do something, just always have the thought process in your mind. Don't press send.
That's right.
Don't press send.
If our criteria that we try and tell our athletes, if it's not something that you would feel comfortable with your grandmom looking at, don't do it.
Yeah, correct. All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to have you back here, Frank. Listen, thank you very much for your time tonight. I'm sure that the athletes are going to get a lot of it. I know that I get a lot out of it, because I'll be honest with you. The reason that I started this podcast, and the reason that that I've associated with Coach Cox and Coach Cohen, is that covering high school sports, whether it be football or basketball or whatever, I'm constantly asked questions about the recruiting process. And I just want to feel comfortable that I can, if I can't answer the question my own self, that I've got gentlemen that I can refer people to that I trust, with their answers. And certainly, Frank, you're one of those people now. And obviously Coach Cox and Coach Cohen there are very great resources as well. So thank you for your time tonight. And I want to thank everybody for watching this evening. We're back next week. And, I always forget to write down next week's topic, Craig. So what's our
transfer
topic?
portal?
Transfer portal. Oh,
Should
my
be
God.
Fun. How it affects recruiting. College recruiting.
I do. The funny thing is I was asking, I was down to the 7-on-7 yesterday, not to digress, but I was down to 7-on-7 yesterday, and was going through that, like the stuff regarding the transfer portal. And I was just blown away at the information that I was told about that. So transfer portal, that's just a whole nother life. NIL, there's a million topics that we've got going on.
We would need a couple of segments to cover transfer portal and NIL.
No doubt. No doubt.
Incredible stuff. The world of college recruiting here on the Get Sign and Succeed podcast. It's every Sunday at 7:30 live, and then it's obviously on demand. Frank Barone from Go MVP. Thank you so much, man. I tell you what, it has been terrific. Craig, thanks as always. And for our fans, hey, we're back next Sunday or on demand on YouTube anytime. And obviously, what we want to do here, I want to share our contact information for all of our folks on here. For Coach Cox, it's 573-416. And I got to move my little item here.
0829.
0829. Website there is oneofonelifeskills.com. Obviously, my number there for businesses that are looking to just what Frank talked about, move up the food chain on your Google searches in sports, advertising, and podcasting is that consistency that you need to go up the Google charts. Obviously, you've got my information there, and obviously Coach Cohen at getrecruitedconsulting.com. I tell you what, we'd love to hear from you guys. It's been a lot of fun this week, and we're going to be back every week. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. All right, have a pleasant evening.